Hi everyone, in this video I'm going to do a couple examples from the skill Algebra 1 JJ5 Outcomes of Compound Events. Just as a reminder, we are going to do an example together on Google Meet, so make sure you're logged into our Google Meet at the beginning of class, because you know attendance is taken on Google Meet as well. But these are additional resources for you if you'd like to do some more examples. So first, what is a compound event? A compound event is going to be an event that's made up of two or more simpler events. So in this specific example, we're talking about picking a card and spinning the spinner, right? So your first simpler event is picking a card. The second is spinning the spinner. So the compound event is that you do both of these things. And here, what the question is asking us is how many outcomes are possible when you pick a card and spin the spinner, right? So we're looking for the total number of possible outcomes here. It's important that you pay attention to what the question is asking. Sometimes it might be asking for how many outcomes are possible. Other times, though, you might see how many different sums are possible. So it's important to keep that in mind. Make sure you're reading the question carefully. So here we have our first event of picking a card. And there's two possible outcomes here, right? Two choices. You can either pick 7 or 8. So we're going to use a tree diagram to figure out how many outcomes are possible here. So here you are. This is going to be you picking a card first. So we're going to create our tree diagram. Your first event, picking a card, has two possible outcomes, right? You're either going to pick a 7 or you're going to pick an 8, right? So once you do that first event, picking a card, next you're going to spin the spinner. So we'll use a different color here, and we'll say we spin the spinner. That's going to be event number 2. And you see there's 3 possible solutions here, right? There's 3 outcomes. You can either spin a 2, 3, or 4. So let's say first you picked a 7. Then you can either spin a 2, a 3, or a 4. But there's also the chance that that first event you picked 8, right? So if you picked 8, then you still have the same chance of spinning a 2, a 3, or a 4. So that's what I mean by a compound event. You have to involve both of these simpler events of picking a card and spinning the spinner. So once we've gotten through all of the simpler events, we can figure out how many different outcomes are possible or how many different combinations of these are possible. So we can use here, we see that there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different branches here in the last branch of our column. So here there are going to be 6 possible combinations. Outcomes we can call it, because they are the combinations of the 2 events, but we'll call them 6 possible outcomes. Now, we can see here that there are 3 possible outcomes from event 2 and 2 possible outcomes of event 1, right? So we could say 2 times 3 would also give us 6. So that's another way we can find the total number of outcomes. But here we used our tree diagram to help us, and we found that same value of 6. And here we can submit our answer, and we see terrific. Awesome. So this is going to be an example where you're finding a slightly different value, and you're not finding the total number of outcomes. You're going to be finding how many different sums are possible. So like I said, here you're going to spin a spinner, pick a card, and find the sum. How many different sums are possible, right? So here we have our first event of spinning the spinner. So here you are again, and you are going to spin the spinner first. So these are your 2 possibilities. You're either going to land on a 2 or you'll land on a 3 when you spin that spinner. Then we're going to be talking about event 2, where you can either pick a 3, 4, 5, 6, or 7. So let's say first you spun a 2. Then you can either land on 3, 4, 5, 6, or 7. Or let's say you spun a 3. Then you'll still have the chance of picking a 3, 4, 5, 6, or 7. So now, we're not done yet because in the last example, we just wanted to find the total number of outcomes, which would have been those last branches there, right? So there would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 different possible combinations here of the spinner and picking a card. But that's not what it's asking. It's asking for how many different sums are possible. So we have to find the sum of each of these different avenues that we could take here on this tree diagram. So here, let me use another color. So we have 2 plus 3 is equal to 5. That would be your first, right? Then you got the second of 2 plus 4 is equal to 6. And that's because first I followed 2 and 3. Next I followed 2 and 4. Then let's do the third branch of 2 plus 5 is equal to 7. Our fourth branch of 2 plus 6 is equal to 8. Our fifth branch of 2 plus 7, which is equal to 9. And now we've found all of the different sums for if your first outcome was spinning a 2, right? So we added 2 plus 3 is 5, 2 plus 4 is 6, 2 plus 5 is 7, 2 plus 6 is 8, 2 plus 7 is 9. So those are the different sums that are possible if you spin a 2, right? But there's also 5 more if you spin a 3. So we have 6 is going to be 3 plus 3, which is equal to 6. Our seventh possible is 3 plus 4 equals 7. Eighth possible is 3 plus 5, which is equal to 8. Ninth possible is 3 plus 6, which is equal to 9. And lastly, we have our 10th combination of 3 plus 7, which is equal to 10. So here, we need to see which one repeat or which ones happen twice. So we see here 6 and 6 happen twice, right? So let's cross one of these out because that's not going to be two different sums, right? Those are the same. So we can cross out 1. 7 also repeats twice, right? So we can cross out the 7. 8 repeats twice, so we can cross out one of the 8s. And 9 happens twice, so we can cross out one of the 9s. So here, it's asking for how many different sums, right? So there's 10 possible outcomes here, but some of them are repeats. Some of them had the same sum as one of the other outcomes, right? So we wanted to find only the number of different sums here. So here we have 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 would be your different possible sums. So there'd be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different sums. So you might recall that in our last example, I said you also could multiply 2 times 3 to get your 6 possible outcomes. That only works for the possible outcomes. It doesn't work when it's worded in a different way, such as different sums or anything that you have to kind of compare the different values. So here you had to find the sum, see which ones happen more than once, since they have to be different, right? So that's something to keep in mind. That's why the tree diagrams are really helpful, especially when you have to find like a different sum or something like that. All right. So that's going to be this skill, Algebra 1 JJ5, Outcomes of Compound Events. I definitely recommend using tree diagrams to help you. If you have any questions at all, please type in the chat on Google Meet and let me know. Or, of course, if it's not during class, you can always send me an email. A couple reminders, make sure that you're logged into IXL when you're working on this skill. I know a couple students completed some skills last quarter when they might not have been logged in, so it doesn't keep track of what's going on the questions you're answering. So make sure you're logged in, and also make sure you show work for these. There should be work to show for this skill JJ5. All right, 10 questions correct. You got this. If you have any questions, let me know. Good luck and have a good day.